Hello and welcome to this episode in my series on defining memories. This time I want to tell you a story about my early days as I began my journey as a tennis player. And at that time I was just in primary school and I was taught by a lady who was very well known, Miss Greenwell, at that time, and she taught a lot of young people. She was employed at that time by the National Association, and she went around various schools in Nairobi especially, and worked with what they believed would be the talented kids. And I was one of the few kids from my school that participated, although we didn't have a tennis court, so we had to go to a neighboring school by bus to be able to play. It was a difficult time, I can tell you that, because that school was very well known for the game, and the girls there were extremely mean to the rest of us. I won't even say what the school was. One of these days you read it in my memoirs. And some of those girls became very good friends of mine eventually. But during those early days it was a very difficult time. I was about 10 when I first started to play after being trained. However, I started touching a tennis racket at about 7, 8 years old. I didn't know what it was at that time anyway. And eventually I did get to see someone play. I used to watch across the fence my neighbors playing. This gentleman would play with his wife, and they would always switch between badminton and tennis. And he came from Norway, and at one time he eventually noticed that I was always there every time they were training, so he'd let me through the fence and I'd get an opportunity to hit a little bit, and he gave me his racket. He didn't let me play tennis with him, he just let me play badminton. So badminton became the first game that I actually knew properly. I had brothers and sisters who were always very busy doing other things, not really playing that much sport, and therefore, and with my brothers much younger than me, and my sisters busy doing their own thing, I don't think people really noticed what I was up to. Luckily, it was something that was positive. And I did get to use that racket. Now just imagine a young person, 9, 10 years old, with an adult racket. And in those days there were these wooden rackets that were pretty heavy. They're not like the rackets that we see now. And of course I got hurt. I was in a lot of pain. I got tennis elbow. I ended up getting support from my mom, and she would bandage me and and do all the massage and things. I'd scream all the time, and I'd have to go and see a doctor from time to time. And I was told, these things that you do that don't make any sense, they don't help you, why are you doing them? And then I would promise I wouldn't, and then I'd be back there again. So I switched to playing football with my brothers for a while. Football in Africa is the same as soccer in America. And I went back to tennis. I played tennis at high school. This time I got into a school that had 14 courts. Those of us who went to Kenya High School would know what I'm talking about. There was a good tennis program running there, and I got a chance to train and play. The interesting things that affected me around that time. One was the level of favoritism that went on. Often you don't get to hear as much about it in tennis, as much as you hear about it in other sports, but there was some element of favoritism. Which family you come from. There was some issue about color, and definitely which school. So if your background was up there in the estimation of the organizers, they made adjustments for you. You got to do things at convenient times for you. And I'll give you one example of what happened to me. And you'll probably find this funny, but I find it funny now. I didn't then. I had to play a tournament at the Karen Club. Now, if you are a Nairobian, you would understand what I'm talking about. During those days, I lived with my sister in Kilimani, not far from the famous Impala Club, where I was a member, a junior member. And I had to take a bus to Karen. Those who understand how those buses were in those days, Kenya bus service. Those buses were few. There were no matatus. So you'd get on a bus, and that bus would take almost an hour to get to Karen Shopping Center. But I had to get from Karen Shopping Center to Karen Country Club. Believe you me, there is nothing as traumatic as that, because the bus stops at Karen Shopping Center and stays there for at least 45 minutes before it went round. It was like I would jump on a bus that was going to stop almost permanently before it took off again. So I would get off the bus and walk, and it would take me at least, if I walked, it would take 45 minutes. If I ran, it would take me about 25 minutes. And from Karen Shopping Center to Karen Country Club is a fair distance. And in those days, there was nothing but bush. And late in the evening, some animals. You were not sure what it was, but there was a road. It wasn't as good as it is now. And there I was, a young girl trying to get to Karen Country Club to play. You get to the gate of the club, and it becomes another very difficult thing to be able to be allowed to come in, because I'm an outsider. I don't look like those people. I probably may speak a little like them, but I don't look like them. And I'm just carrying this one single racket and a little bag and some water. It was crazy. And I needed to get there on time. A couple of times in those tournaments, I was time bound because I would end up being late, sitting right at the gate. Whoever is organizing the tournament, one of the organizers, is aware that I'm waiting for permission at the gate in order to get in. And I wouldn't get the permission. They would wait until I've been called almost at the last call. And then they would say, tell her she can come in. Those are the times I can never forget. I would come in and the referee, he was very kind to me, although a lot of people said he was a very nasty person. I have no idea, but he was very kind to me. He was not the one who would stop me. And he would say, you're late. And he tried to make adjustments for me. By that time, I'm stressed out. I've been told by people, it's too late. You're probably not going to be allowed to play. Why did you come late? And you're trying to explain and nobody's listening to you. And the first couple of times I was so scared and so frustrated that I could barely play. I remember people never really noticed that I existed. In fact, years later I became a member of the club and no one could ever recall that I played tournaments there. I remember I played one particular tournament that I got to the semi-finals and played it, but I could not reach the finals because I let go. I was so scared that time was running out and I was going to have to cross from Karen Club to the bus stop in the dark. So you can imagine some of the strange things that happen to you. When you pick up something that is considered not your thing, it is for certain people and certain classes and certain people who are certain colors or certain level of political class. And here you are, just a simple young girl who loves the game. It was not easy, but it was worth it. It changed my outlook to life. I got to understand that if you really believe in something, you go for it. You plan for it. I saved money for each tournament. I organized everything myself, from what I was going to be able to carry to eat, the money that I was going to pay for my bus fare, everything. And there was always an entry fee that needed to be paid. You needed to dress correctly because there are certain things that you wear and certain things you should not wear. And that means I had to find ways to raise the initial capital, in quotes, in order to keep myself playing the game. So sometimes when people look at me and they say, oh, things just came easy. It's not true. Everybody has a battle and everybody has a story. And I'm going to be telling you more about what I have gone through, because I know out there some of you have experienced similar circumstances and made it in spite of all that. So just remember, like I say, never say die, never say give up, and never say I'm too tired. Because tomorrow always brings new hope and new opportunity. You take care. Stay strong. Bye-bye.